and welcome to my channel. My name is The Dyslexic Teacher. Welcome if you are new here, welcome if you've been before. Right, it is interview season. So I had a lot of interviews for my current position. Well, I didn't have a lot of interviews for my current position. I went through a lot of interviews before I got my current position. And what I found was lots of different schools wanted lots of different things depending on their Ofsted rating or who was the head teacher or the trust that they were in. And actually in the end, I came up with like a list of things that I think are really important, and I'm going to share those with you. So this is my video of what I think. I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm not saying it's right, but what I'm saying is these definitely helped me. And the things that I learned from doing roughly 45 interviews last year, because I always get through the door no matter what, but I don't always bag it. So when I reflected on my interview process and all of the interviews that I'd done, when I reflected on those and put all of the feedback together, I then interviewed in a certain kind of way for my current role and ended up getting the job. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. Tip number 1. Get in the school. Get your face into the school before you even apply. You don't want to apply for a role in a school that you possibly might not like the feeling of. You will know straight away whether it is a school that you want to apply for or not. Make sure you go around the school, speak to SLT, speak to class teachers, speak to some of the kids if you can, if you're able to. And whilst you're there, make sure that you've got 3 key questions that you want the answers to. One of them I would definitely go for is behaviour policy. Okay, how do they uphold and enforce their behaviour policy? What kind of behaviour policy do they have? Okay, one of my other main questions that I asked is about the children's mental health. How do they maintain the children and teachers' mental health? How do they tackle issues? How do they support those children that are really struggling within themselves? I also am a keen SEN advocate, so I wanted to know how they help those children who have different learning difficulties and different learning styles. How do they accommodate for everybody in the school? How are they inclusive rather than exclusive? So they are my 3 main questions. If you're going in, I mean, I'm a Key Stage 2 teacher, I'm not a Key Stage 1 by any stretch. If I was going into Key Stage 1, I'd want to know what the phonics programme is. I'd want to know what approach they take to reading and writing, and also reading and writing for pleasure. We hear a lot about reading for pleasure, but not an awful lot for writing for pleasure. And I think it's really key that the children start developing their skills in writing really quickly. So they are my 3, maybe 4 top questions that I would be asking whilst I've gone for a look around before I've even thought about applying. Number 2, I would be making sure that I am on the website. So I'm at a point now where I've been given an interview, I've applied, I've got through to the interview stage. They've sent you a letter or an email saying, hey, we want you to teach a small group of, say, year 4s on whatever day. The first thing you need to do is go onto that website, find out their behaviour policy, if you haven't already from the walk around. Really familiarise yourself with the behaviour policy and make sure that when you are there on your interview, you enforce that behaviour policy. They are going to be looking for how you're managing behaviour. treat those children like they're already your class. You have high expectations of these children regardless of whether they're yours or not. Behaviour policy. My second one would be have a look at their curriculum mapping. Where are they in their curriculum? What kind of schemes of work do they have? If you're teaching a maths lesson, are they using power maths or maths no problem or effective maths? Are they using classroom secrets? Are they using white rose? There are lots and lots and lots of different maths processes and lots of different schemes of work that they will be using to deliver maths. You need really to try and be in line with that, but always aim for the mastery approach. What's really important is that you get a key in of your key learning. So what are you wanting them to learn? Your sessions are probably going to be really small. What are you wanting them to learn? And ultimately, you want to be able to see visible progress in a very, very short space of time. But it needs to be in line with what they're doing delivery-wise. There's an aeroplane. Rooftop height. Okay, so yeah, get on the website. What schemes of learning are they doing? What schemes of work are they using? Where are they in the curriculum map? Absolutely do not teach these children time for an interview. I taught children time 3 times in interviews and it was a disaster because they just don't get it. So stay away from time. I don't know if it was just a me thing and not being able to get them to make progress, or whether it was the kids, or whether it was a mixture of both, or what it was, but just avoid time, just avoid it, because they just look at you like you're completely insane, if I'm fair. While you've looked at the website to find out their schemes of work and where they are in the curriculum, if you're delivering a lesson that is sort of recapping what they've learned already, then I would definitely recommend popping in something new that you can spiral, and then you need to be explaining, because they will ask you, why have you chosen to deliver that lesson? But I'll come on to that in a second. Tip number 3. So, questions. Don't be afraid to be reflective. They will say to you, how do you think that went? And you are allowed to say, you know what, that was not a good lesson. I would have. They are wanting you to be self-critical. They want you to be what we would call a reflective practitioner. So be reflective. If it wasn't a great lesson, don't be afraid to say it wasn't a great lesson. They are going to want to see that you've been reflective on it, you've managed to identify the issues with that lesson, and you are able to consider how you would rectify it. How would you change it if you were to teach it again? What would you do differently next time to make sure that the children have learnt to their full capacity? It's really important that you're honest, and it's really important that you teach the way you teach. I went through I lost out on jobs actually because they told me that I wasn't enthusiastic enough, and that I didn't show what I'd like, my oomph and my fire, but previous interviews had told me to tone myself down because I riled the kids and I got them too excited, and then that made them tricky. I think about how I would have wanted to have been taught. I try and be the teacher that I needed when I was a kid. So that then, it means that I am high energy and I am on the go all of the time, and I try and bring humour in and I try and have a laugh with them, but I am also able to rein them back in, and when I say to them, guys, right, this is purposeful and it's independent. They know that they need to work in quiet, at least, if not complete silence, where they need to focus. And my kids are really good at doing that. So for me, if I kept adapting my teaching based on feedback that I was given in previous job interviews, I'd have never have got the job that I got. I got to a point with this job interview where I've got my current role, where I was like, you know what, my school will have me for me and the way that I teach, and they will like my style, they'll like the way that I approach things. So I think it's really, really important that you take on board the feedback that you're given. You know, if they say to you that they think you're a bit flat and that you don't seem a bit enthusiastic, then take that on board and maybe up level your enthusiasm and really show the passion that you have for this job. You guys haven't done 3 years degree and then a year's PGCE or SKIT or school direct or whatever it is that you've done for you to be told that you're not passionate about this. People don't go into teaching if they're not passionate people. They just don't. So make sure that that comes through when you're doing your lessons. Make sure that that comes through when you're giving your interview answers. Don't be afraid to take notes in to your interview either. I took notes in. By the time I got this job, I was frazzled. I'd done 44 interviews. I was exhausted. I was in year 6 while I was doing my training, so I was getting them through their SATs. And you know, I needed notes by then. I needed notes, and they helped me, and I bagged the job, and it's a permanent role. So yeah, that's my top 3 tips. Really, I don't think I've got any more tips for you, but do not freak out. For the love of goodness, do not freak out if you don't get a job. Your school will come. It will. The school that is perfect for you is out there. It is. And you've just got to trust in the universe. It knows what it's doing. There's loads of agency. You know, we're told all of the time that there is a retention issue. There's a recruitment issue. There are teaching roles out there. But you've got to get the right one in the right school for you. My final point, I think, would probably be just try and enjoy the process for what it is. And if all else fails, you can do your ECT abroad. There are schemes and ways of going over to Abu Dhabi and Dubai and Qatar. You can do your ECT over there. They have the national curriculum, the 2014 national curriculum over there. You could do your ECT over in New Zealand and Australia. So and also one of the other things that I was told when I was leaving my course was that you had to have your ECT done within 5 years, or you've got to do your whole course all over again. That is a lie, which I think is really naughty actually, and applies lots and lots of pressure onto you, and you don't need that pressure because it's not true. The only restrictions, I guess, is that they don't want you being on a short-term supply for a long period of time. So if you don't get a permanent role, or you don't get a fixed term contract in a school, or you don't get a long-term supply role within a school where they're willing to put you through and give you a mentor and a tutor for your ECT, then the restriction is that you have to be in a long-term supply role or a fixed term or a permanent position to be able to do your ECT. The only reason they don't want you on short-term supply for more than 5 years is because you've gone unregulated, unmonitored, unmentored for 5 years. And actually nobody's questioning or helping you develop your teaching style or your understanding of how the children's learning, their metacognition, effective questioning, effective summative and formative assessment. All of that stuff is stuff that you need to be revisiting all of the time. And obviously, if you're on short-term supply where you're just going from one school to the other, just sort of getting by and getting experience, that's not being challenged and it's not being monitored, and obviously the government don't want that. So that is the only restriction. You have 5 years. If you are doing short-term supply, you have 5 years. If for whatever reason, you know, some of the people on my course didn't get a permanent full-time job, some of the people on my course got pregnant, there's lots and lots of things that happen. People lose people, life happens. You could start your ECT in 10 years' time if you wanted. That's not a problem. So don't be fooled or pressured into thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to get a full-time permanent role to be able to do my ECT, and I've got to get it done within 5 years, because otherwise I'm going to have to do the whole thing again. No, that's not the truth. The government website make it very, very clear. There is no time limit whatsoever on starting your ECT. The only thing they say is that if you are continuing to work in schools on short-term supply, you're only allowed to do that for 5 years, and then you must get into a role where you are doing your ECT, your 2 years ECT. I will do a different video on ECT stuff, which I will put out next week, because that will also include what I'd mentioned in my previous video about you learning things from my next video that you won't have learnt in university, or even in your school direct. You will have been very well protected from a lot of things. So yeah, they're my main things, I think. Like I've just said, they're the main things. Mention spiralling so that you're interrupting the forgetting. I think most schools now are doing spiral curriculums where you are constantly revisiting the learning that they did before and adding in new information so that it interrupts the forgetting and they continue to embed the knowledge that they've learned, rather than learning something once, never revisiting it and giving them the opportunity to forget it. Then, you know, 3 months time you get into a test situation, they've got no idea, and actually they've learnt it, they just don't remember. So yeah. Also, lastly, safeguarding. You are bound to be given question on safeguarding, and as long as you say all of the right buzzwords, you will pass that question without an issue. Those buzzwords are report to the DSL, designated safeguard lead, that you will not promise to keep anything a secret. You can't make that promise. It is not your job to investigate. It's your job to highlight and report. That's all. Them. Make sure you write down the date, the time, and exactly, as close as possible, what has been said to you. So yeah, if you want to know anything else, if you are worrying about anything, or you would like me to do a video on anything else specific, let me know. I will do it. Failing that, I will just think of all of the things that I wish I knew when I got into teaching and put those somewhere. Also, I would like to highlight the necessity for teachmate.ai. ICT with Mr. P has created an AI website that has got loads of teacher tools, loads of school classroom tools, but I will do a separate video on that as well. And hopefully I will be able to help you make life a little bit easier in your classrooms, because it is literally manic all of the time. Oh, and fun fact, I know I said that I wasn't going to get a ring light and all of that jazz. I've got a ring light, it's even got a little remote. That's so cute. And a microphone that's not plugged in. Because otherwise my thing doesn't fit in the thing. Anywho, yeah, I hope that's been really helpful. So 4 tips then, really, 4 tips. Don't fret, be yourself. You guys are absolutely going to smash it. Don't worry if there's not any jobs out there at the minute. The cut-off is the 31st of May. So anybody that is currently in the profession has to give a term's notice. So that's the 31st of May in a lot of areas around where I am anyway. So there will be more jobs showing up. You can find jobs on websites like eTeach, or the government website for your local area will have school jobs and school vacancies on there as well. But eTeach is really good. You'll find a lot of agency work and supply work on places like Indeed, so go to them. If you are in the East Midlands, I highly recommend Hayes, Teacher Active, ABC Teachers. They're just 3 of really, really good teacher agencies. So it's been nice to see you, my lovely bunch of cocomelons, and I will see you next week. Bye.